Ramzan Kadyrov has died in Grozny. He passed away this morning, a day before his scheduled kidney transplant surgery.
Wait, hold on, stop. This is fake, right?
I dream of dying in this long-lasting, brutal war.
That's what they call be careful what you wish for. Dreams come true. So, did Ramzan finally go to Opsan's concert? Write in the comments what you think.
Hello there. Hello to you. It's great to see you, my dear friend.
Now for the facts. The essence. On the 21st, the Telegram channel Aplod Ishkari published this. At 9:03 local time in Grozny, the head of Chechnya passed away. Our source reports that kidney failure ultimately led to cardiac arrest, although a kidney transplant operation had been scheduled for the next day. Interesting. So it turns out like this. Ramzan Kadyrov wanted to see his son Adam. After he was involved in a severe car accident and is now in critical condition.
Doctors fought for Adam Kadyrov's life for 4 hours in the intensive care unit at the Sklifosovsky Emergency Research Institute in Moscow.
But the meeting between father and son most probably never actually took place, due to the fact that Adam was receiving treatment at a hospital in Moscow, while Ramzan apparently died in...
We are now looking at the city of Grozny, which serves as the capital of the Chechen Republic.
And here a logical question arises. If Kadyrov really did die, why is everyone silent about it? In particular, why is Putin silent? He surely helped treat Kadyrov. Online, people even know how. But seriously, why not? Why is there no official confirmation of Don's death? Again, why the silence? The answer is simple. Well, first of all, here's what the same Telegram channel Aplod Ishkari writes. No one is going to tell you about this anytime soon. An order has already been given to keep quiet until the green light is given, to release the information to the masses. They're deciding who will be the next head of Chechnya. It seems the Kadyrov family has no intention of giving up power. But I'll tell you more about that later. Yes, it's all very interesting. But in fact, if Kadyrov Sr. is already gone, who said we'd find out about this death quickly? Oh, that's not a given.
When it's in our interest, anything can be done.
Exactly. In general, hiding the deaths of Soviet and later Russian leaders, chiefs, politicians, it's, an old KGB tradition. Look at Zhirinovsky. They kept him in a fridge for a month. Don't believe me? Then listen up. To former KGB officer and undercover agent Sergei Zhirinov.
When COVID started and when Zhirinovsky died, they hid it for 3 weeks too. They didn't say that Zhirinovsky had died. They kept it from the Russian Federation. It's unclear why, because he wasn't that important. So it appears that both of the Kadyrovs completely disappeared from our collective view almost immediately after they publicly mocked President Zelensky and said something along the lines of, well, that is basically the end of the story for now. Well, Zelensky mocked Kadyrov, said that Donald Trump should have treated Kadyrov like Maduro, right? And so the elder one lashed out, responded, well, how did he respond? It was the post on his Telegram channel. We don't actually know if it was really him or not, but at least it seemed like it was Ramzan. The style matched his, at least. That's it. And then the younger one showed up with a video and said, yeah, if my dad tells me, if Putin orders me, I'll be in Kiev in a second and bring Zelensky right back to Chechnya. And suddenly Kadyrov Jr. gets into a car accident. So could this be the handiwork of Zyuganov and Malyuk? Oh, Zyuganov. What am I thinking? Zyuganov. Budanov and Malyuk.
Is this Budanov's swan song at Gur, you mean? But I don't think Ukrainian special services have arms that long. Not yet. Still, anything's possible. More likely, as we both understand perfectly well, the go-ahead for these special operations, whether it was a possible poisoning or an actual car accident, was probably most likely given by Putin. And here's another good question that arises. If not Putin, then who could have gone through with this against his will?
No, I actually don't suspect Putin at all, because Kadyrov suits Putin, and Kadyrov has an agreement specifically with Putin. That's why Kadyrov will remain in power physically as long as he is able to, and as long as Putin is in power. That is precisely why I do not think Putin would take any drastic actions here. It is simply not in his personal interest to forcibly remove or replace Kadyrov, but for the various people surrounding Putin from one side or another, whether they are those who are relatively mild critics or even bigger hardliners who see Kadyrov, to put it quite bluntly, as not being a particularly ethnic white Russian individual, and accordingly not orthodox. And that's why, so to speak, prominent figures such as Dugin and Malafeev might see him as someone who is extracting an estimated amount of up to $5 billion every single year from the Russian people, which is essentially a consequence of the tribute that Putin pays to Chechnya from the state budget, following the eventual defeat of Russia in the Chechen War. So these are more likely the real roots of the issue here. To express this in another way, to put it bluntly, Russian Nazism, Russian neo-fascism, Russian nationalism, and Russian Orthodox-inspired fascism, they are the ones who are extremely and vocally critical of Kadyrov, not Putin himself. Putin is perfectly satisfied with the actions of Kadyrov.
And how peaceful, if Kadyrov leaves, right? How peaceful could this transfer of power in Chechnya actually be, in your opinion? Or is it, well, Putin who was primarily interested in this? But really, how actually realistic and achievable is that?
There will be problems in any case, right? Because, well, when you have a primitive communal system, you need a very powerful and authoritative figure. Well, you can certainly understand that yourself, right? If some snot-nosed little atom comes in, well, they will absolutely devour him alive just 3 seconds after he gets there. And by the way, maybe that's also an answer to this, right? Because his father started awarding him again, giving him some positions, that sort of thing. He became the secretary of the Security Council there. I mean, it's just really funny. That is essentially the whole story. But by the way, you also simply cannot rule out the possibility of internalized power struggles within the family clan there, because the older brother Akhmat, who is about 2 or 3 years older than little Adam, really doesn't like the fact that their father is constantly babying this snot-nosed kid, this particular chubby one. You see, the eldest son, according to all the laws of Islam, of all sorts of tribal and state formations, and of countries, the eldest son always inherits power, not some snot-nosed kid, not the 25th little Adam. It's clear that the father loves the 25th little Adam more than all the others, but the eldest should be the boss. But in reality, Akhmat doesn't really fit the role of a leader, and now Kadyrov has appointed him vice president of Chechnya and acting in some capacities. But in any case, none of them can be president. They're all between 17 and 20 years old. That's it. And according to the constitution of Chechnya, the president of Chechnya cannot be someone younger than 30. By the way, that was the case with Kadyrov too. He had to spend 3 years as prime minister before he became president. So the whole situation here is kind of up in the air. And usually in such tightly controlled dictatorial small republics, it always ends in a lot of bloodshed or massacres, either within the clan or between clans.
And it's clear that if there really is a major outbreak of bloodshed there, Putin might not have the necessary strength to stop it at this point. What do you think about that?
Well, Putin doesn't have enough strength to defeat Ukraine, and on top of that, he might end up with a second front to deal with. You know, to understand what's going to happen there, just reread Maurice Drouin's The Accursed Kings. That's all. The same thing happened in France. They were constantly poisoning each other there. Well, the struggle for the throne is always a bloody one. It's always palace coups, always behind-the-scenes intrigues, and so on.